Hello. Today we're going to be painting one of the balls. You're only going to paint one. Don't paint the other one. We'll do the other one on a different day. And we're going to make it look like it's three-dimensional, that it has some volume. We're going to do this using a technique where we paint with broken brush strokes. So you'll actually be able to see the brush strokes. They shouldn't be blended smooth. This is a lot like the way that the Impressionist painters worked with paints. Now, the place where you want to start on the ball is with the darkest area if you're working with acrylic paint. So I'm going to start with, I've chosen two colors, blue. I have a little bit of a brown to make it even darker, and then I'm going to be mixing it with different amounts of white. I've chosen blue because it's a different hue than my background. So whatever hue you chose for your background, you may want to choose a different hue for the ball. Okay, so we always start painting the darkest areas first. So I'm going to I will start with the shadow core on the ball, which is right through here. So I'm going to start by taking my dark blue paint. And if you've chosen a lighter hue, you want to add something to really make it dark. So a brown, black, dark blue, or some other color that will make it go really dark. I'm going to mix it with a little bit of brown so it goes quite dark. And I'm going to paint a few brush strokes right through the shadow core area on the ball. Now notice you can still see some of the red that I painted last time underneath, and that's totally okay. Okay, next up I want to go a little bit lighter. I'm going to paint the reflected light area now, which is this area down here. I want it to be a bit lighter, so I'm going to use just the pure blue paint. I'm not going to have this mixed with any of the brown. And I'm going to paint this through my reflected light area. It still looks pretty dark on the screen, but hopefully you can see that it's a little bit lighter than what we had for the shadow core. And I'm going to take these brush strokes all the way down to the bottom of the ball. I'm also going to layer some of these brush strokes right up into the shadow core, so it'll make it feel like it's part of the same object and it won't look like it has a stripe through the middle. And I'm also going to do a little bit of it up here along the top edge of the shadow core. Now the reflected light still seems really quite dark to me, so I'm going to try adding just the tiniest bit of white to my blue, not too much. It still should look like a fairly dark blue, but just a little bit lighter than what I had before. I'm going to paint that into my reflected light area. Okay, so I'm finished painting the dark side of the ball. Now I want to head up into the side where I'm getting direct light from spotlight. The thing to remember when you paint the light side of the sphere is that everything up here should be lighter than anything down in the shadow. So everything down here should be darker and everything up here should be lighter. So you can clearly tell where the light is coming from. So I have some paint here with blue with a tiny bit of white mixed in. Now I'm going to mix more white into it. So now I have a medium blue. I'm going to paint this over the entire light side of the ball. Notice that I'm using a broken brush stroke. I'm going to let some of the red show through, and that's totally fine. The reason we're doing the broken brush stroke is because this is one technique that you can use for showing changes in value, changes from light to dark. Doing it with a blended technique is something we'll learn next time. It's a little bit trickier to make that work with acrylic paint because the acrylic paint dries so fast. Okay, so I have a median value now for the whole light side of the ball. But if you were to actually look at a ball in the light, you would notice that it's not all the same. It continues to get lighter up here until you hit the highlight. The other thing I want to do is I don't want to have this edge right here be really abrupt. So I'm going to allow some of my light brush strokes to drag down into the shadow side just a little bit. It's just going to soften that edge. Next up, I'm going to go back to my medium blue, and I'm going to make it much lighter. So now I'm trying to make a much lighter value for the blue. And I'm going to layer this on top of what I've already done, but I'm not going to put it everywhere. I'm just going to make a smaller area with this lighter blue. And I'm letting some of the darker blue show through. I'm not going to paint any of this lighter value down along the edge where it's approaching the shadow side of the ball. I'm keeping it up towards the top. Okay, next up I want to do a smaller area, even lighter. Now it gets harder to add white paint to your color and make much progress with getting it lighter. So at this point I'm just going to come over and use whatever blue I have on my brush, scoop up some more white, and I'm just going to stir it over here. This is for an even lighter value. Notice that I'm not painting it right up to the top edge. It's in just a little bit. Next up, I'm going to show a highlight. I'm going to clean my brush out completely. So I'm getting rid of all of the blue. I'm just going to grab a small amount of pure white, and I'm just going to place just a little bit of a white highlight right through there. All right, looks like you're done, but you're really only halfway done. Next up, we're going to go down to our cast shadow on the table. The cast shadow should be darker, this area here, darker than your reflected light area. So I'm going to go back to my pure blue mixed with brown so I can get something really, really dark. If your color isn't going dark enough, try black. Try mixing, if you have a red, try mixing it with green. But try to get a really dark value. I'm painting this down here where the cast shadow goes. Now, these brush strokes up here, I've kind of curved them a little bit to follow the shape of the ball. Down here, I want this to look like a table, so I'm going to do horizontal brush strokes. So it looks like it's sitting on a flat surface. It's okay if some of your underpainting, the paint underneath, is showing through. Okay, next up we're going to continue with the background. I'm going to make it look dark towards the top, but I'm going to fade it lighter as it comes down. Remember that the light that's creating this really dark shadow under the ball is also making the table very light. So I'm going to paint from dark to light. With acrylic painting, you always paint the dark areas first, and then you move to the light areas. So I'm going to start at the top with my really dark paint up here. And just stop about halfway because you have another painting to do on the other half of your paper. We're going to do this on a different day. Okay, so I've got my really dark color up here. I'm painting with horizontal brush strokes. I want to be extra careful when I get close to the sphere so that I can keep that edge and keep it kind of a nice round shape. As I go down, I'm going to make it a bit lighter. I'm just going to put some pure brown in there. That's part of my color scheme. I like the brown. So I'm going to put some of that in. Careful along the edge of the ball. I'm going to put some pure blue in right through here. Notice I'm being really careful when I'm next to the ball. Now I'm going to start mixing the colors with white. So I have this stuff right here that I already have mixed up. I'm going to layer this into the background now. Do the same thing on the other side. I'm putting a few dashes up in the dark area so I get a smoother transition from darker to lighter. Okay, now I'm going to add more white to it. I'll continue painting down towards my cast shadow. Getting lighter as I go down. Okay, next up I'm going to clean my brush out, so I'm going to wipe all of the extra paint out of my brush, clean it with some water. I'm going to pick up some pure white paint, and I'm just going to paint white on the bottom. Notice how I'm keeping the brush strokes horizontal. That's going to make it look like it's on a flat surface. I'm layering some of the white up into the blue-gray. And there you have it. Okay, so when you're all finished with this, please make sure you wash your brush out really well with soap and water. Please don't paint the other ball yet. We're going to use a different technique for the other ball. And if you do it with the same technique, I'm going to have to ask you to paint over it. So just wait until next time to paint the other half of your paper. And have fun, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you.